Battle Royale and Esports, a topic that has been brought up ever since its infancy a few years ago, a topic that has now entered into Call of Duty after the release of Black Ops 4's newest game mode, Blackout. Joining me today, I've got esports writer and esports awards Journalist of the Year 2018 nominee, director of Dexerto, Mr. Mike Kent. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. What about yourself, Landon?
I'm doing pretty good, buddy. I'm not going to lie, though. All I've really been doing up to this point is just waiting heavily for the release of September 19th. Things that I'm sure you guys are waiting for on Dexerto. It's going to be a crazy day.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff. I've heard a lot of interesting
a lot of stuff, huh?
Yeah. I've heard a lot of interesting stuff about the format and how it's going to, how it sounds like it's going to set everything up for franchising for the following year. But I think well, obviously we'll find out on the 19th. I don't know anything for definite, but pretty sure we'll see 5v5, almost certain. Pretty much, I think as you can tell, most pro players have kind of stopped talking about it because I think they know now. I think they've kind of been told. So I think we'll see a lot of roster changes, which is obviously going to be fantastic for shows like yours and sites like mine.
Yeah, I feel like the pause that we've had for so long is kind of like admitting the fact that, hey, at least something is being discussed. Because I think it was Hex the other day who'd mentioned, he was like, hey, if this pause wasn't a thing, then we'd probably already know the format, because there would be no reason for a discussion if 4v4 were to remain the same. But regardless, though, of course, getting back on topic with Blackout, there's a lot of things that we can obviously talk about, maybe for future segments. But as an avid esports writer, of course, I know you and the other guys at Dexerto have been providing coverage ahead of Blackout. But be honest with me, when you heard the initial thoughts of BR being announced in Call of Duty, what was your first beginning thoughts to what would be BR and COD?
To be honest, I've been incredibly positive from the beginning. At least I think so. So this is when someone pulls up a tweet where I say, "Oh, it'll never work." But as far as I can remember, I've been pretty positive about it, and the reason for that is because you're taking a game mode which is Battle Royale, and then you're using one of the slickest, cleanest, mechanical games, and then putting those together. Boom. I mean, you look at PUBG, the game is riddled with issues. Like, you ever watch PUBG on Twitch even now? In fact, if you go and watch a game of Blackout, even though it's on PS4, and then go watch a game of PUBG, which is on PC, and the PC one, honestly, the PUBG on PC, I when I was watching it earlier, I thought, this looks like a mobile game. Just the way how clunky it is, so I think that I've always been of the opinion that, since hearing about this, is that you're basically putting two of the best things together, and on top of that, they seem to have absolutely nailed it. Like, the movement seems really good, seems fluid, fast. You know, in PUBG, I think there's a lot of stalling, a lot of waiting around, whereas Fortnite, you're kind of dominated by the building. So if you're not into the building scene, you don't really have an alternative.
Yeah, and I personally thought, like, whenever the argument was brought up, at least in the initial stages, I thought it wasn't a bad idea at all. However, I thought that Activision kind of getting rid of the campaign to focus heavily on multiplayer was a huge step in them trying to cement what they know to be incredibly important. But do you think this could actually really help the Call of Duty franchise grow?
I mean, just on your first point, you've got to remember that Activision, they're not doing absolutely anything unless the stats show that it's worth doing. Like, there's obviously a reason that they're not doing the campaign anymore, or they're not doing it for this game at least, because they must know the numbers of how many people are playing just the campaign and how many people instead would be interested in BR. With, over the course of years and years and years since Activision first started and Call of Duty first started, back when it first ever came out, it was only the campaign because the internet was never good enough for anyone to play on it. There was never any kind of idea behind multiplayer. But over the years, that's completely changed. It's, of course, going to move towards this, and that's why you see so many games getting released that don't even have single players, because people don't even like them. They're like, "Oh, I've completed it in 4 hours." So, there's no longevity, there's no microtransactions. Activision aren't stupid. Like, as much as people like to
what to say they are, yeah.
As much people like to hate on them, like, they're gonna do it based on the numbers. They know what they're doing. They're a or multi-billion-dollar company. Like, there's no way that they don't know that campaign isn't worth doing in comparison to something like Battle Royale. I mean, might say it in the future, but I mean, how many people have you seen Backlash that there's been no campaign? I've not seen anyone.
Oh yeah, not one. Although we do come from the multiplayer community. However, though, it doesn't seem to be really too much of a sore spot by any means. But I feel like my only issue with BR coming to Call of Duty is whether or not this becomes a single franchise project or just Treyarch wanting to prove why they're superior to all the other developers out there. Just because, like I said, Treyarch is.
Sorry, do you think that they'll only do BR on this game?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if this is a single like project for like per Treyarch, or if this is like a discussion that they've had with the other developers saying, "Hey, this is something that we're going to have for future years." That's my only worry with this is like how long of this, like how long is this going to be kind of published for? And let's say, you know, Infinity Ward comes through next year. They don't have a BR mode. You know, Call of Duty's not really going to be supporting very heavily the previous title because they want to try to make the money from the newest one and not really support the BR
They'll
mode.
have BR 100%. There's no way.
You think so?
Absolutely. I mean, look,
that's what I'm worried about because I don't know. Like, I feel like these discussions, they happen so well. I don't know what these discussions actually happen, but
I mean, if you think about this, if you think about Blackout, right? There's no way that they've developed this game for that long. It's just, in fact, I'm pretty sure there's been information circulating, at least amongst the circles that I know, that this game was nothing even just a few months ago. Like when they originally did the first trailer, as far as I'm aware, that they barely had any of the map done. So they can although it's obviously complex, they can obviously take stuff that's worked in Blackout. They can take all of the mechanics and you could even use the map to some extent and just import it all. Now, I'm not a game designer. It's obviously a lot more complicated than that. But the fact that they've able to make Blackout what it is in such a short amount of time means that they can then test over the next few months towards the end of the year how it's doing. If it's still popular, which it's going to be because it's an incredibly fun mode to play, then of course they're going to have it in the next game. They wouldn't. It'd be like, why wouldn't they include it?
That's a good point. Like, I really hope they do. It's just like a little bit of that worrisome factor in me where it's like, I know this is, at least they have a great product going. I just want to see them kind of reoccur it. But I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but did your eyebrow raise a little bit if you have heard, or if you hear now, the Activision Blizzard shares actually closed 7% higher this past Tuesday after Blackout was released?
I hadn't actually heard that, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you've got every single major content creator from Ninja to Shroud to Dr. Disrespect literally going, this is incredible, and the amount of reach they have alone, that, you know, as much as people, if you think about streamers, right, the most popular streamers are the ones that are streaming what's popular, and therefore that's kind of a good way to gauge what's of interest to the public. If you see Ninja playing a game, then you know, unless it's sponsored, then you know it's going to be popular. Like, it's just the way it works. So how I kind of see it is, I'm not surprised. The shares got, and they should go up because this is going to make them an absolute fortune, especially when it comes to microtransactions, which hopefully they're not going to be like in World War II, where it was like, oh, we don't want to spoil how theatrical it is, or whatever it was they said. And then by the end, they're eventually just like, fine, we'll just put everything in the game, when they should have just done that at the start, because people, as much as they want an escape from reality, they don't want to have to like watch. They want colors, they want fun, and I think Fortnite's shown that.
Now, obviously, the Blackout currently is being seen as a huge success, without question. Now, do you think this is just purely based around the hype? Because we got to keep in mind, this is just the beta. Like, the thing has only been out for a few days, and we still have yet, as of this moment, to see it on PC for the time being. Do you think this could actually have some traction behind it? And a lot of people are saying the traction, get on the hype train because it's going to be the PUBG killer. Do you think it has potential to do that?
100%. I mean, if you look at how well it plays just on a console with a keyboard, then I think you're going to see how different it's going to be on, like, how much better it's going to be on PC. You're not only going to have the higher frame rate, you're going to have people being able to do even more ridiculous things because they've got a mouse and keyboard. You know, as soon as someone like Shroud or Ninja, especially Shroud, gets control of that, like, sniper, then it's going to be absolutely insane to watch. One of my concerns is that I don't think it's going to be like I think it's going to be interesting because what's overpowered on PC is going to be completely different to what's overpowered on console, just based on the range of movement. I mean, people have already said that snipers in Blackout are already quite overpowered just because of the distance of the map and how big it is. So then if you then give it to a PC player who can do even more ridiculous things with it, then I think as long as Treyarch have got a plan about not just to update it holistically, but instead to update it separately, because I think you could end up seeing two very different games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the way that they manage it once it's released is going to be the really major factor of how long it can actually last. But speaking of lasting, right? everyone has been talking about Call of Duty, as you know, right? The Call of Duty franchise is dead. It's starting to decline. Obviously, the numbers aren't exactly to where that they have been over the last few years. It's still going to be there no matter what. But do you think that the Blackout mode, the overall idea of BR, especially if it were to continue over the next few years, could really help revitalize and bring back those fans, or at least you could kind of say kind of be the revival of Call of Duty?
Absolutely. I think I personally don't think that Call of Duty's really been declining in terms of people are always scaremongering about it. But I think it needed something new to it. I think the whole online multiplayer industry needed something new. It needed something that was going to kind of revitalize it. Because if you think about like what people watch on stream now, apart from League of Legends, consistently it's BR games that people are now watching. It's not, even CS:GO, people aren't watching that really casually anymore. It's competition, and that's it. So you have to ask why. I think it's given this whole new boost because, especially for the streaming world, if you think about it, like you go into the game and then it closes off over the course of time. It obviously closes down to a tiny circle, and that's the end of the game. That's what people, you get invested in people when you're watching it, and also when you're playing it. You're slowly over time. It's like, oh, one game you go on. It could be 30 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. It's almost like back when people used to play like time trials on games. It could go for there's a level you have to complete, and you might only get halfway, and then you start again, or you might end up, going the whole way. I think that's how I describe BR, and that's why it's so popular.
Well, it seems as if and I've heard the numbers come through from streamers, and it's like as the game progresses on, the viewership rises. And then once the match is over, or that particular BR game, it's like, okay, then the viewers start to kind of sequence out a little bit.
People are invested, aren't they?
Right, exactly.
They're, from the start, they're like, yes, I do it. I do it all the time.
Same here.
It's just you go on, and then you'll see someone, you're like, oh shit, like they just died. So I was like, I'll not bother. I'll just. But if I'm getting and someone's just landed, I'm like, all right, I'll see where this goes. Like, especially if it's a good character, for example, the Doc or someone like that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just like you're invested in that game and you want to see like how they can do, even though you've seen pretty much every single way that the game can be completed, especially in games like Fortnite, PUBG, etc. But it's obviously incredibly early to say. However, do you think this new Blackout mode could actually have potential to produce an esports community?
I honestly don't know. Like I've been obviously we've known about this call for a little. I've known about this call for a kind of day, so I've had time to think about it, and I just can't. I just don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if Battle Royale is as competitive as people want it to be. I think that there is a huge competitive element to it, and I think it's really enjoyable to watch. But is it competitive? Like, does it provide that same drama? Like you watch it, for example, I know not a lot of people love Call of Duty Esports, right? Or over the years, there's less people being involved and whatever. But you're telling me that the 5 like a S&D last map 5-5, you don't get that with Battle Royale really because of the way the numbers work. How it's for example, with most PUBG tournaments, they don't just do like one game; it's across like 10 games. And so the person who wins the entire tournament could place like 6th in the last game. It's not really like a huge moment. But then if you want to do it the other way, which is you do it, whoever does, like Fortnite have done, for example, when they did the showdown event. What was it called?
It was the E3 tournament is what you're talking about.
The E3 tournament where they just did one tournament, one game, and then whoever won, and of course Ninja won it, which was amazing. But that provided that kind of unbelievable moment at the end. But as we see in Fortnite progress, we know it's not really like that every time. And also, we've also seen with Battle Royale is just the randomness of it all. So, the random loot, the random places people go, like what people find, it's not really consistent of what you'd call competitive. And if you look at any other successful esport, it's because it's super balanced. I'm not saying that Battle Royale doesn't have an esports element to it, and it could have an esports element to it. But I just can't predict if there's going to be interest in that. There's definitely going to be interest in people watching it, but whether that interest is going to translate over to watching it in a competitive environment, I don't know.
Right. I just feel there's so many questions, especially going back to Blackout quickly, on like what would really be the case if a esports community or even a league, anything along those lines, tournaments were to be formed. There's just so many questions because it's like, okay, Will it be on PS4, which they're trying to push? Could it even be on PC with the sponsorship with Battle, or not the sponsorship, but the group up with Blizzard and BattleNet, and then obviously we got to talk about, would it even be in the next title? Would Infinity Ward, would Sledgehammer be on board with wanting to do that? I feel like there's so many little tasks they still need to check off the list if they even want to entertain the idea of throwing another esport out there, which they could not even be interested in. They might be just fine with the rumored franchise league. They're trying to get into 5v5 talks. It seems as if they're trying to want to establish something greater, but I don't know if that would provide competition or if that'd be good to have two kind of things going on in one title at once. But I know we already... Or sorry, go ahead.
I think it's what we'll see with Blackout, and I'm pretty sure this will be the case, is you're going to see big streamers. That I think the most popular people are going to be the people on PC.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is any tournaments, I think the most popular ones again will be on PC. I'm the only major concern I have is that element of it will overshadow COD Esports on console, because I think that you're going to see people with insane. As long as they don't try and do both, I think it's just like if you're a Call of Duty pro, but then actually you could just get absolutely melted by someone else on PC. It's not really the same. You know what I mean? I know in Fortnite there's a few players that who do on console, like Nick Merckx and that Aiden guy, and they can kind of compete at a high level against the best PC players. But I think when it comes to an FPS, that reduces even more. I think you're going to see PC players absolutely obliterate even the best ever console players.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard discussion to have because it's a matter of like, well, like everyone kind of realizes if you're going to compare both console and PC, you're probably going to have to go with PC, especially if it plays well, which it seems like it definitely has the possibility to do so. But quickly, before we got to obviously close things out here, your thoughts on Battle Royale and esports, right? I mean, do you think it has a future in the space? Just because we talk about the randomness, we talk about the entire basis behind it has to do with the random circle locations, random item drops, etc. It's kind of a hard question to ask, or really even a hard question to answer. Do you think it has a future in esports and could be looked upon as like the future League of Legends, the future Counter-Strikes, Dotas?
I think if Battle Royale is going to work as an esport, it can't be 100 people all dropping into one server. Mm-hmm. I think that the actual idea of it is good, but my idea, which could just be absolute horseshit, but I've always said this is, with Fortnite or with Blackout or PUBG or whatever, why not have people drop in to a much smaller map with fixed weapons, and even just have it as two teams. So two teams drop in, 2 teams of 4 or 2 teams of 3 or 2 or whatever. You could even do 1v1. They drop in, get their weapons, the map closes, and then you see how that develops, and then you use it in the same way that you do Call of Duty at the moment. So you'd have X team versus Y team. They'd play the winner of that. You could do it over 3 maps, and then you do get that kind of intense ending, the intense bit, but you're not having 98 other people or all these other players in the server causing issues. We're at the very beginning of what Battle Royale is. If you think about it, it came out of like the Armor mod, I think someone said, and then it went to H1Z1, then it's gone through PUBG to Fortnite, and now it's going to come to Call of Duty and Battlefield. If they want it to work as an esport, it has to be a lot easier to follow, and it has to be a bit more concise. So I'd probably see it as how I'd like to see it anyway is a kind of miniature version of BR, where 2 teams spawn. They could even spawn on either side rather than parachute in with weapons that they want, and then over time it closes down, and that becomes the game mode. Because again, you can follow it, but it still provides that intense ending that Battle Royale has, but you're not kind of watching someone walk around a map for 4 hours.
Look at you, Mike. I think someone needs to give Mike a call on the future esports format for VR. I don't know, but
I mean, I think it sounds like a good idea.
I do too.
Whether it would in reality, whether it would work, I don't know.
I'd watch it, but you guys can obviously follow Mike on Twitter at DexertoMike, or visit Dexerto.com for the latest in esports news. Mike, of course, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on.